Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's presentation of the Berkeley Forum. As president of the Berkeley Forum, my name is Charlie, and I'm so excited to announce our speaker of the evening, Mr. Ien Chi. Before we get started, I'd like to ask all of you to silence and put away all your phones and laptops at a respected speaker. So while you're doing that, I'll give a brief introduction. Mr. Chi is the creative director of Jubilee Media, which aims to create a movement for empathy and serves a global audience of over 5 million followers. Known mostly for its hit web series like Middle Ground, Spectrum, and Odd Man Out, Jubilee is now expanding beyond digital media into feature films, TV shows, podcasts, events, and apparel in order to create a global ecosystem and community that takes a stand for empathy and human good. In the past, Ien has created works for NASA, Apple, Nike, the New York Times, NBC Asian America, and YouTube, among others. His digital media work has collectively garnered more than 750 million views to date. He is an INFP, officially the world's 11th best whistler as of 2012, a pastor's kid, and is known among his friends for saying, "Life is such a trip." So without further ado, Mr. Ien Chi.
Is this mic working? Is it working? Everyone can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm going to start with a little video after I log in here. This is, we made a little documentary about behind the scenes at Jubilee. How many of you guys are subscribed to Jubilee, out of curiosity? Oh my gosh, good humans! Let's go! Woo! Oh my gosh. Anyone seen Jubilee Journals?
Yes.
Some of you? Okay, cool. This is a clip, about a 1.5-minute clip, just to kind of, as a throwback, and then it's a little bit of introduction, so we'll start with this. Oh.
7 years ago, Jason made his first ever video, and it stuck.
I mean, I first started this with one video of me going to a New York subway stop to sing.
It was his 22nd birthday, and Jason woke up to tragic news about the Haiti earthquake.
It didn't feel like a coincidence, but I had this belief that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. I decided to grab my guitar and several of my friends to sing and busk to raise $100 for Haiti.
The goal was to raise $100, and they only raised $80. But when they went home and shared their video about it, they ended up raising way more than expected.
That was the time that I realized that stories and media and film are such a powerful means to do good.
And I literally thought that was the only videos I was gonna make. Since then, we've literally made over 200 videos.
To do some good for Haiti became an epic 7-year journey of telling hundreds of stories that impacted tens of millions of people. And 7 years later...
Is it happening? I think, alright, we're live.
We're about to hit 500,000 subscribers on YouTube.
More people. 4 more people. Can you hear my voice crack? That's how excited I am. 4 more people.
4 more people. Alright, cool. This is when we hit 3 million subscribers. We're about to hit 5, which is pretty amazing. Just that Boba Guys, I think the Boba Guys founder was here, right? A couple weeks ago. He's an investor in Jubilee, so pretty small world, that's pretty cool. Anyways, if you guys don't know, our mission from the start, well, it's been a nonprofit since 2010. Jubilee turned for-profit in 2017 with the mission of creating an ecosystem that stands for empathy. And so no matter what medium that takes, mostly we're known for YouTube, but we're expanding into a lot of other arenas. But essentially, we want to bring people together, challenge people's perspectives, get them out of their own bubbles, whether that's understanding different people's perspectives, but also feeling the feels of other human beings with different experiences, and that's kind of cool. It wasn't always like this, though. This is the beginning when I joined, and when we turned from nonprofit to for-profit, it was only Jason, Taylor, and me. And believe me, it was not sexy back then. We were trying to figure out how do we make things that stand out in the crowd and actually are meaningful and kind of impact the world in a positive way. And 2 years later, it's been kind of amazing. There's kind of been a snowball effect. So in the past 2 years, we've grown from 3 employees to 30 employees top two photos, the top left is our 3 million Bobo party, top right is our team right now. We've gained about 5 million plus subscribers on different platforms, including YouTube, 750 million plus views. We have an apparel line, Good Human Clothing. We have long form. We're making a documentary behind the scenes right now and getting into TV shows, doing some events. We have a podcast called Radical Empathy, and we also have a fellowship program. We train people to make some meaningful things in a good way with some other good humans. You guys might recognize some of the series up here. So these are kind of what we're mostly known for online right now. The middle left one is Versus One, kind of a dating show where we bring this idea of online dating in person, like swiping in real life. What happens when you do that to real people in real life? We have Middle Ground, where we bring people of polar opposite perspectives together and spark a conversation. Usually people that you don't see together in mainstream media. Bottom left is Spectrum, where we take people of a certain demographic or group, bring them together and kind of show the nuances and difference of opinion in that same demographic. And the bottom right is Odd Men Out, currently our most popular show. This is more of the fun ones where people get together and have judgments about each other, which are thrown out the window. Among 7 people, one of them is a liar, and people have to find out who the liar is. This bottom one is the first one we ever did. It was 6 Beyonce fans and 1 non-Beyonce fan. And the Hive, they're pretty brutal. So anyways, shedding a light on some interesting things there. Okay, how do we make empathy sexy for 5 million plus humans? This is what we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk to you about some YouTube algorithms and Logan Paul. Then we're going to talk about consequences of erudite vernacular utilized irrespective of necessity. And then we're going to talk about surfing and catching waves, being underpaid, and lastly, we're going to talk about expanding circles. Y'all ready? Okay, cool. Let's talk about Logan Paul. I got to talk about the lay of the land, what we're kind of up against. So our mission being to push empathy, it's not innately sexy. It's not something that you kind of advertise as something cool. The people who get the most attention are people like Logan Paul. The reason that is there's a few dominant platforms today in the world for media. Some of these are Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. The thing about these platforms is their entire goal is to keep you on their platforms for as long as possible and to keep you coming back and using it more and more and more. So what does that mean? They optimize to get you addicted, right? To come back for the content that you want and the content that gets you the most engaged. Engagement is the key factor here. They don't have any ways of telling how amazing or quality the works are besides engagement. So when you like a video, when you comment, when you share a video, and the longer of a comment you write on a video, the more engaged you are. What are the types of content that gets most engagement? It tends to be loud, it tends to be controversial, it's shocking, right? That's kind of what these platforms are actually optimized for. That's the same reason that we're all falling into kind of filter bubbles where you watch one thing, and whatever you believe, it's going to feed you the same thing that goes deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole, so people get radicalized, people end up in their own bubbles. We're trying to counteract that. We're trying to come in here and be like, hey, come on, let's actually get together and not be in our filter bubbles, and but hopefully also, make things that are engaging. Anyways, all that to say, these platforms today are optimized for these kind of dudes. There's nothing wrong with, David Dobrik and putting drunk text on a billboard, but it's not the most empathetic, you know what I mean? Logan Paul, Jake Paul, these are just some screenshots of trending videos I saw recently. Worst design fails ever. You guys know Alex Jones? People know Alex Jones in here? I was reading a book, Zucked, and it talks about an inside joke at YouTube and Facebook called 3 Degrees to Alex Jones. So essentially any video on YouTube, it gives you a suggested video to kind of fall deeper down the rabbit hole, and the joke is that you're always 3 degrees away from Alex Jones, which is why he's so popular and he gets so many views. We tested viral TikTok food hacks, world's hottest chip. This is the kind of content, generally speaking, there are some good players and all that, but generally speaking, the content that is driven by personalities who have loud voices, who are really charismatic, and who say controversial things and kind of appeal to the lowest common denominator of anger and riling people up. This is what the platforms are naturally optimized for. So the question is, among this sea of so much noise and a lot of this kind of loud, shocking stuff, how do we stand out? Like, how do we do what we do? So I'm going to talk about the consequences of erudite vernacular utilized irrespective of necessity, or otherwise known as problems with using long words needlessly. This is a screenshot I saw the other day by a thesis, what's his name? Daniel M. Oppenheimer at Princeton University. He wrote a thesis paper about people using complicated words needlessly. When I was in college, one time, I wrote a paper for a religion class. It was my thesis paper, and I forget what I wrote about, but I just wrote in my normal voice, the way I'm talking to you right now. I got a whole grade marked down because it was informal. The teacher told me it wasn't academic. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm just talking in a way that's normal. This is the first lesson. You can't speak in a way that's complicated when you're making content that reaches a lot of people. Tactic 1, make it simple and clear. You can't be in your own head. Literally, at Jubilee, when directors come to me with ideas, I ask them, hey, can you explain this idea to your 9-year-old grandma and 10-year-olds in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, and will they understand the idea? And will they be interested? Because at the end of the day, we're not trying to appeal to people who are only intellectual or only interested in one side. We're trying to expand the language of who we're talking to all types of people. The simpler your language is and the clearer it is, the more people you're going to reach, right? At the end of the day, our goal is to bridge all types of people together. So that spectrum you're reaching has to be as broad as possible. So is whatever you're making going to make sense to a 9-year-old, your 9-year-old grandma, or 10-year-olds in the middle of Kansas? A couple examples of this. When I first joined Jubilee, I was coming from a really artsy-fartsy place, and I was like, it doesn't matter if it makes money, like people need to watch this because it's really meaningful or whatever. This is some of the stuff I made. So glimpses of art. What does that even mean? You don't really know what you're getting. It might be an artful title. It might be simple, but it's not clear, right? The next one, Pyro Seminar, Mimetic Desire and Violence. This is one of my favorite philosophers, but man, he's not simple and clear at all. No one's gonna watch this crap. Then the next one is a video that I made early at Jubilee's history too, the superhero saving your life every day. It kind of sounds profound, it kind of sounds artistic, but it's not really simple, it's not really clear what you're gonna get. The key to making things in today's world is to actually distill your idea to the essence. Before even people watch it, they need to understand what they're gonna get and what exactly it is. Crystal clear, before they even watch the video. Again, you're competing against millions and millions of thumbnails and videos out there. Why do people watch your content? It needs to be simple and clear, and they need to know exactly what they're getting. For example, do all teen moms think the same? 6 Christians versus 1 secret atheist. I'm a cop, ask me anything. It's pretty clear what you're gonna get in the video. It's also very simple of an idea. You don't have to take any time to really explain it to people. You just read the title, you know exactly what it is. Number 2, surfing waves. When I first graduated college and I started making things, you know, I'd like read a book or like be really inspired by a talk or something, and I'd play around with this idea, whatever that idea was, and I'd make a piece about it because it was really inspiring to me. And I put like weeks and months of work into this amazing art piece, and I put it out onto the world on YouTube and Vimeo, and it'd get maybe like 100 views, like 200 views, like maybe 1,000 views. And I'd be thinking like, man, people don't understand my genius. Why aren't they watching my work? They just don't get it. How can I convince the world to like my work? Because they just don't get it. What I realized as I worked more and more with other clients, other companies, especially at Jubilee, is you have to pay attention to the ocean of human attention. And what I mean by that is you think of yourself, think of a surfer. When you go out into the ocean, as a surfer, you don't control the waves. You see where the waves are, where it's gonna form, you paddle out and you get the timing right so that you can ride that wave, and it's effortless. You don't have to do anything once you're on the wave, but you make sure you do the work to catch the wave. Similarly, that's how human attention works. In the real world, there are things that people pay attention to, right? Things that are going on in the world, things that people are interested in based on events that are going on. Pay attention to what's going on and make sure to speak in the arenas where people are paying attention. You ride the wave, and there's so much better of a chance that people will pay attention, and you'll make so much better of an impact, right? It's not about being in your own head and making something amazing that's revolutionary and that trying to convince other people or market it so other people come. You go to where people are and you serve them, but you speak in your own voice so that you're adding value. So tactic 2 of how to make some more meaningful, empathetic things is you make it savvy. What savvy means is you make it trendy and you make it entertaining. Trendy tends to have a negative connotation to it, but I believe the opposite. If you're being very present and you're being very, very attentive to what's going on, and you're not in your own isolated head, but you're seeing where other people are paying attention to, you can naturally catch the waves of people's attention, and you can make things that naturally have a lot of impact. And you make it entertaining because people are interested in it. Okay, a couple examples again. As you can see, the examples from before, these are not trendy, these are not entertaining. Again, you have to make sure that it's trendy and entertaining before they even click in. So just by the packaging alone, just the packaging, the title. These are a couple, I think, good examples from our channel of what is savvy and trending. So Instagram versus runway models. Can anyone be a model?
Can Trump supporters and immigrants see eye to eye? Climate change activists, skeptics, people read the last text from their exes. Teens try to resist their phones for 20 minutes. That was popular. 30 versus 1, dating app in real life, that's the most popular one we've ever had on our channel. These all blew up, and I believe the reason is, these are areas people are all paying attention to. There's been conversation about this in our time and culture and our place. We've all had, some interesting conversations through text, whether or not it's breaking up, but relationship-based, right? So that's how you do it. Lastly, this is a Spectrum episode we did. Spectrum, if you don't know, it's a series on our channel where we bring 6 people together and we read a variety of prompts and ask them to step on a line that represents what they believe. So for example, like, I like dogs, then you can step on a line that's like strongly agree or strongly disagree or whatnot, and you talk about your perspectives. We usually stay behind the camera. And for this one, we decided to actually put ourselves in front of the camera and be more vulnerable and talk about all sorts of things that companies just don't talk about. So we put 6 of our employees in front of the camera. Jason, that's the CEO in the front. David, our intern, casting, producer, everyone. We talked about how underpaid we are, whether or not we get drunk with our boss, how pissed off we were at Jason at times. What else did we talk about? We're about to talk about some office crushes. We decided that was taking a little bit too far. Maybe next time we'll do that. Anyways, out of all the videos we've ever made on the channel, this got us the most new subscribers. And I believe it's because it was real. So tactic number 3, make it real. What we mean by that, it's got to be vulnerable. You have to have skin in the game. The mistake that a lot of people make today, or just in the past, or people who are very artsy, like me, is what you see on Vimeo, or what you see with the Pepsi advertisement that went viral for the wrong reasons, or this Wells Fargo ad I saw. For a little bit, there was a battle between Vimeo and YouTube, right? They were kind of like on similar ground until YouTube completely dominated, and obviously YouTube won just in terms of the view counts they're getting. But I believe the reason that they're so much more popular is because they're so much more real. When you go on Vimeo, I think a lot of the pieces are incredibly crafted and they're very high production quality, but you have to put yourself into the world of the creator, right? The creator's not coming to your world. Does that make sense? It's not really raw. When you go to a theater, similarly, you're giving the benefit of the doubt to the creator, so in the first like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, it might not make sense, but it's okay because it's taking you somewhere, you know that. That just does not work on YouTube anymore. It's gotta be in real life. It's gotta feel completely raw. The same reason that the Kylie Jenner, is this Kendall Jenner? Kylie Jenner, I feel like a grandpa. Anyways, I saw the channel and it had its own audience. It was like a community that we could make it for and actually have a relationship with. So that's what attracted me to digital media. It just felt a lot fulfilling. There was a relationship there with the audience.
You sort of showed us a lot of videos and content that Jubilee creates, and these videos on Jubilee explore very deep and intimate topics such as death, identity, and love. What, if any, are the obstacles to creating an environment where people are willing to be vulnerable?
Yeah. It depends on the person. Like the first thing that comes to mind is like the realness factor. Like we'll get a lot of people, we'll try to get people who kind of, stand strongly in their truth and also, are kind of spirited figures in on their issue. But a lot of times they're trying to, they're like, what do you call it, like camera smart? Like they know what to say, but it's not really vulnerable. So I think the trick is when it's just calling them on their bullshit. Like when they're actually talking and they say something where they're trying to look good instead of like saying something real, just kind of taking them aside and also setting the space to be like, hey, this is a space for your authentic truth and not like trying to sell yourself, essentially. It doesn't always work, and I mean, we're still kind of working on it, but I think it's a lot of communication beforehand as well as our directors on set. They just need to be very present and diligent to like really go there with people and make sure they're paying attention to those moments where we can go deeper.
How, if at all, has your artistic approach evolved since you made the transition to YouTube?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was, I think it was just a lot of struggle with my own ego, because before I would make things and, I was wondering why I wasn't getting many views. And then working a lot with Jason, he taught me just a way to work with people that serves them more versus like me trying to really change the world myself. I think you have to speak in a way that, is naturally interesting to people instead of forcing them to pay attention to something you want them to pay attention to. So overall, it's been a journey of like getting out of my own head and learning to make things that speak to other people versus just speak to myself. Yeah, that makes sense.
And some have argued that Jubilee's middle ground could create a binary where participants have to choose one side.
Yeah.
What, if any, are the pitfalls of creating such a series that may inadvertently simplify complex issues?
Yeah, that's a hard question. I mean, we kind of, to be transparent, like the conversations are probably like 2 hours long, and we cut it down to maybe like usually 20 minutes or less. Our hope, though, is that it's the start of a conversation. Recently, we've been talking about that a lot more, just in terms of even like providing like articles and like links for people to kind of like dive further down the rabbit hole of like, you know, exploring whatever the issue is, you know, whether they're conservative, liberal, pro-life, pro-choice. And I think we can do a lot better job at that, actually. And I'm trying to get our directors to like go out and kind of talk to a lot more experts in the fields to kind of figure out if we do whittle it down to just like 15 minutes out of 2 hours, like which of those 15 minutes are the most pivotal that like are usually misunderstood by the mainstream, or you know, is important to kind of get across. So there's not like a formula to it, but it's kind of more like we just got to be more vigilant every time we make a video, making sure when we see it together that there are people on both sides speaking to what should or should not be on there, making sure we're not doing more harm. Yeah.
And moving back to your talk, you stated that YouTube has become oversaturated with attention-grabbing, clickbait material. You brought up Logan Paul. What responsibility, if any, do content creators have in exposing individuals to thoughtful and meaningful work?
What responsibility do people have to exposing people to meaningful work? Man,
If any.
that's a tough one. Like, I don't think we can go to Logan Paul or other people and tell them to stop making what they are, because, I mean, we could, but I don't think there's innately anything wrong with it. It's just that a lot of people misunderstand what they're making to be inspirational to do, you know, dumb things. But I think it's up to individual creators who want to make meaningful things that they first understand the rules of the game, that these platforms do optimize for those things, and learn how to work with it, but also figure out, you know, like get the help or the practice you need to like make things that really do just make a difference. Because at the end of the day, I don't think you can change people and tell them to do something that is not natural to them. But for the people who do want to make meaningful things, like we have to really give that support, and they have, you know, there's a certain self-accountability to like really go there and you know, not give up, to actually show up. There's a lot of people doing, you know, great media, a lot of loud media, but if you want to make meaningful things, like, come on, we don't have enough of you guys. We got to get on board. Let's go.
And in the past and earlier in our moderating portion, you discussed the value of authenticity when having conversations and even disagreements. How, if at all, can Jubilee Media influence people to have more authentic conversations in their own lives?
You said, how can we influence people to have more authentic conversations? I think beyond video is kind of the first step we think about it, but what we want to do is actually create a whole ecosystem. What we're trying to do is actually connect our followers more to each other. So for events, for example, it's like we want to scale events so that people are having like middle ground experiences in person all around the country. So like we're working on kind of like a paid subscription tier where you just get a lot more value like behind the scenes in terms of like connecting with other people too. So that's our hope in terms of what we're doing. In terms of what other people can do, I think we get a lot of messages from people like watching these videos like in classrooms or sharing with their friends, and I think that's probably the best, you know, one of the best things to do. It's like what we're making, share it around, you know, to people who especially have different views than you, get together, talk about it. I think it's a good conversation starter. It's not going to be a final answer, but like, you know, even like my nephew, you know, sent it to her teacher, and her teacher kind of shares it with different classes, which is pretty cool. So yeah, share it and talk about it. That's a good start.
And while whistling may not be a very popular sport, you took the time to compete and placed 11th in the International Whistling Competition in 2012.
Yes, I did.
Well, we would all want to hear you whistle.
Sure.
That's not my question. What led you to explore the field of whistling, and what lessons, if any, did you take away from that experience?
Okay, so I discovered I could whistle in 6th grade. And then my dad is really good, my brother's really good, so I think it might be Gen X, I'm not sure. What inspired me was I just like to whistle a lot, and my friends would joke and be like, "Ah, you should enter a whistling contest, Ian." So I Googled it one day and it actually existed, and it was like a 4-hour drive from Emory in North Carolina. So I was like, okay, let's go and make a documentary about this. So I ditched school for 2 days and went and whistled, and I got 11th place. So. You guys want to hear it? You have to hear it though, right? I know there's people who
there is an audience.
All right, hold on. I can't whistle when I smile, so.